Okay, thank you. I'm delighted to be here as well, and I'm not at all upset, Toby, because I'm actually going to address what you've said. But I just want to start by talking about something which actually Toby used the words, but actually a word which I think has been virtually absent today, which I find incredibly important, and I would argue will be unbelievably important to the Great Southwest, which is the word markets. And actually, I add to it another word, global markets. And the reason I'm starting at this point is because I believe, in terms of any endeavor or initiative, if you start against sort of looking at yourself and positioning yourself in whatever part of an operation you are or whatever sector, you quickly see that you must collaborate, that you are just a cog in quite a big supply chain. And it allows you to both describe your assets, which we've heard a lot today about assets, but it also then allows you to very, very specifically identify both key pieces of infrastructure and the skills you need. And sometimes I think when we consider these things, we start slightly further down what I would see as an ecosystem, and therefore we spend a lot of time talking about the infrastructure that we need. Now, I think if Great Southwest is going to be successful, I also think we have to focus more, perhaps, than we collectively do on the future markets. And again, as I say, it's about being precise about the specific assets to the markets and how we fit in these larger supply chains. Now, I therefore think if you do that, I see no particular disadvantage in this region against any of the other powerhouses in terms of actually responding to opportunities which are bigger than any region in its own right. Because I would argue there are very, very few geographically bound markets. And of course, this is where technology has such a major part to play. Not only, as Toby says, is a sector in its own right, it actually touches every single sector. And of course, it increasingly has become a bridge to many, many new opportunities. So basically, I think if we understand some of the economic models that we are working in and reflect the specificity, and I will come to my sector, creative digital, that I work in the sector in a second, it's about also understanding the very sort of specific conditions for growth that are required by individual sectors. And for instance, if we take the creative digital sector, which is a huge growing sector, it actually is the largest part by miles of the UK creative industries, which of course contributes currently £90 billion to the UK economy and £10 million an hour to the UK economy, and 1 in 9 new jobs is in this sector. The Southwest has an incredible amount of people working in this sector, and the wonderful thing is it's right across the region. So therefore, it's a real asset to the entire region. Now, it's not an urban phenomenon. And of course, in some place like Cornwall, which is rural, fragmented, not a Bristol, etc., you can actually build a really significant presence in a location that is not in a city, something that is often misunderstood when we start to get reviews of how clustering happens in the UK. And I think that is something the Great Southwest can demonstrate, that it can work in a high growth sector and it can make it happen across lots of different geographies, lots of different sort of sizes of conurbations of people, which I think is often overlooked and forgotten. Now in Cornwall, we are, and I took issue with the panel earlier on, it is not difficult to attract young people into Cornwall to come and work in this sector or into the Southwest, because you can see lots of people coming from other parts of the Southwest to do it. It's not even difficult to get them to stay. The issue is making sure that you take a long view on how you actually support effectively new businesses growing out of this very, very exciting sort of industry. At Falmouth, we are doing it through something called our Launchpad programme, where we are literally, with Cornwall Council, who are partnering with us on this, building a pipeline of talent that is basically setting up high growth businesses but we have to take responsibility for looking at what happens once they've been set up and when they've been in existence for 10 years and they've grown on. So it's a really, really long view that you have to take in relation to this. So the point that I sort of want to conclude or get close to conclusion on is that, of course, what I'm actually talking about is the way a particular sector behaves, and technology, sort of in whatever form, companies, individuals in it, they tend to swarm. And the interesting thing about swarming is you can actually create the conditions for swarming, as I said, in a rural location as much as you can in an urban one. Swarming, of course, is merely an organizational mechanism to increase productivity, which was established by bees. But the thing about swarming is a whole swarm can get up and fly away. And of course, it can be you can lose something almost overnight. So really, the point that I want to make, and the ask I have of government, and the ask I have of the Great Southwest, is to describe and articulate ourselves in relation to the big global opportunities and our piece within them. And also then to use that to argue that we get the right conditions. Because the truth is, and I said this to Sajid Javid when he was delayed in UK airport, and I was after his recent visit, which is basically you can produce honey in the middle of London or on the coast of Cornwall. And people around the world will buy it if you have the right products. The only difference, of course, is that the honey is actually sweeter in Cornwall and the air is actually better than London. So thank you very much.
Hear to that.